Hello Octalysis Primer. Welcome to another video in Octalysis Prime. And this video, we're going to talk about the advanced Octalysis design concepts. And specifically, this one is how to design OP level up systems. So we're going to explore leveling up systems, how to make it good, and we're actually going to look at some examples. So it's going to be a detailed drill down about how to do it well. And this is stuff I actually coach my own team. This is what we do when we design for consulting clients. And again, a lot of times we deliver a project and we usually charge, like somewhere between $35,000 to $80,000. So it's something that's useful. People pay for it. And I want to also just say that a lot of gamification literature content, teachers out there, potential experts, they talk about, oh, leveling up is nice. It's nice. You want players to level up. But this video is specific. This is going to tell you how to balance the leveling up. How fast should it be? What are the actual numbers in it? So if you're like impatient, you should just know that later on you actually go to the spreadsheet and learn how to balance it. So it's not conceptual. It's exactly how will we define the experience for the clients in a relatively limited video. So we'll see how it goes. And obviously, if we see some great activity in the community, people want to know more, or they have specific questions, we can make more videos. So no worries, because you're Octalysis Primer, and I do things for you guys. All right, so I want to do first a basic cover, leveling up principles. So in my game design technique list, it's number 85. If that's cool to you, you can put it in your spreadsheet. If you're collecting it, it's okay. Just make sure every game technique you're learning, you're utilizing well. That's the important thing. So there's a few principles of having a leveling up system in your gamified platform. Number one, it's useful for creating a user journey, right? Because your daily activity loop for your experience is probably very similar. They come back, do these things. They come back, do these things. They come back, do the same thing. And if you're intrinsically engaging, motivating, that's great. Like Facebook is intrinsically motivating, and just kind of keep doing that. But sometimes it's nice to have some extrinsic growth, core drive to develop an accomplishment. So I've done more than what I did 2 years ago. I'm at a higher status. I can do more things. So it actually creates a nice journey. And what's nice is that then you can do different things at different stages. So if you know about the 4 phases of the player's journey, there's discovery, onboarding, scaffolding, and endgame, right? So during onboarding, it creates intrigue, right? Because it's like, oh, I'm just level 1. Well, what does it mean if I can get to level 5? What does level 10 mean, right? So now you're saying, hey, even if you don't exactly like everything you're doing, that's okay, because you're just level 1. Of course you don't like everything you're doing, right? But when you're level 5, when you're level 10, things will be amazing. So there's a little bit of scarcity there. It's a dangling carrot. It's like, hey, you have to do more desired actions to get there. There's also that core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity. This whole thing enables what we call the evolved UI, evolved user interface, which is game design technique number 37, which allows the experience to evolve, the interface to change. There's more buttons. Like, hey, every time you level up, there's another button on your screen. You have another power. There's another navigation tab you can choose. And so it's a way to kind of pace out the evolved UI, because evolved UI, you kind of have to decide, okay, what unlocks the new UI? And leveling up is usually a great trigger to do that. Then there's the scaffolding progression. We talk about the scaffolding is when people come back over and over and over again what they're doing. So one, there's core drive to development and accomplishment, which means they're progressing forward. Oftentimes, if you tie it to the next one, if you unlock new powers, right, boosters, then there's core drive through empowerment of creative feedback. There's new creatives like, oh, I'm going to reach level 5 and unlock this thing, and then I can do this cool stuff. There's creativity and strategy involved. And again, there's still that scarcity. Hey, you're close to level 5 and you're close to level 6 now. You could unlock these powers. It's really useful. And again, the boosters are amazing. I made another video in Octalysis Prime explaining about boosters, about why they're so useful. And again, the best design from my experience is boosters. If you have boosters, if you know how to design for boosters, put them into your experience. It's great. And then there's for the end game, you can show off, right? It's like you're showing everyone like, hey, I'm a high level player, I'm awesome. You build status. It's kind of cool. So there's core drive 5, social influence and relatedness, but also there's core drive 8, the sunk cost prison. Like it's like, oh, I've spent so much time building up to a high level player. Now, if I just quit, I switch to something else, it's very hard. So the nice thing about this leveling up design, which is actually a tier 3 game design technique, I guess I don't have a slide for that, but just remember it's a tier 3. It helps with onboarding, scaffolding, and endgame, and enables a few other things. So it's very dynamic. It's very powerful. I'm a really big fan of having a leveling up system in an experience when possible. Okay, and in another video we talk about the difference between labor-driven points and performance-driven points. You know, EXP versus points or currency. I'm not gonna talk about the differences now, but I just want to say that the leveling up can be used for both, right? It could be, hey, just keep doing stuff and you level up, or hey, you have to perform well, you have to do well in your desired actions before you can level up. Personally, I tend to design leveling up towards EXP, so labor-driven points. Just as long as you're doing stuff, you're leveling up, and when you level up, you unlock more powers. For the performance-driven, when they get the points and currency, is to empower more desired actions at that level. So a little bit abstract, but I think we can talk about that a little bit later. So usually, if you get points or currency, that's different from leveling up, right? Those means you redeem something and you have some power up or item and you can use it. Leveling up usually means that once you reach level 4, of course you can't spend it, right? You can't use level 4. You are level 4, and when you're level 4, you have certain powers. You can, do 5 votes instead of 1 vote. You can send the little blue unicorn when everyone else has normal unicorn. And you just can do more things. Your magnetic cap is lifted if you've seen the other video about magnetic caps. And so, it's just kind of a lot of things coming together. And so again, once you reach a level, you just have a lot of powers. Typically, you wouldn't do a design where it's like, once you reach level 5, you can use this booster once, right? You have this booster that will work for 12 hours. It doesn't usually work that way. It's like, hey, once you're level 5, that's your status. These are your powers, and for the rest of your life, you have them, and it can only go up from there. So it acts a little bit different like currency. Also, when people keep spending time leveling up, it makes them hard to quit. So that's like a Core Drive 8 type of principle game to design technique number 50. But the key here is it must be balanced for all types of players. How do you control the scarcity? How do you make sure the journey is balanced? So this is where I move to the other part of the video, where I go to a spreadsheet and I showcase how do we design for a leveling up system, right? If you remember, when we do the Octalis design process, there are 5 steps. Number 1, it's the strategy dashboard. The business metrics, the players, desired actions, feedback mechanics, reward incentives, things like that. And the second step is the ideation, the brainstorming. Oh, Core Drive 1, Core Drive 2, Core Drive 3, onboarding, scaffolding, all this, a lot of ideas. And you can see those ideas usually go to the third phase, which is the P feature list. Just lots and lots of ideas and, power and ease. We're not going to cover that. The 4th step is to do the battle plan, which is doing all the things that I'm talking about. But I'm going to focus on the points. So the battle plan, you look at the structure, desired action, feedback mechanics, rewards. You have a spreadsheet for rewards. You understand them. You have a spreadsheet for desired actions. You understand them. And you can move to your levels. If you've used levels, you've used badges, sure, why not? These are places where you define all the little things. But again, levels, very important. All right. So when you design for levels, there are a few things to think about. A lot of things, actually. The first thing is we want to think about how many levels should there be. Should a lot of designs I've seen probably like just level 1 to 10. That's not too bad. It's okay. For this sample project, we have something more complex where it's like level 1 to 60, right? But level 1 to 60 is broken into different tiers. So there's white, blue, green. Octalis Prime go by this model too. But you can just think about there's 60 levels, and the way to think about how many levels do you want to think about how long the overall journey is, right? Do you want people just hanging out for 1 year? If they finish 1 year, yay, they graduate, they don't need to come back anymore. Or is it a lifelong journey? You think the life cycle of a user is like 20 years or longer, right? I did some consulting for RuneScape, and they said, the average gamer has played the game for 10 plus years. So they actually have more gamers that played for 10 plus years than people within 3 years, which is like ridiculously amazing. So you want to think about how long that journey is. And so if it's like a 10-year journey and you only have 5 levels, that means on average, and it's not going to work this way, by the way, because we're talking about other stuff. On average, a person's going to level up once every 2 years, right? Not the best, right? But if it's like, hey, if it's like a 2-month competition, you know, and you have 10 levels, that's pretty decent, right? So it's like on average every 6 days you'll level up. But again, it usually doesn't work that way, because at the beginning people level up faster, and later on they level slower. So you want to think about how many levels you want. That's number 1. Number 2, you want to have a base, right? So I have the spreadsheet that says required for next level and total EXP. So at level 1, you need 100 experience points to reach level 2. So once you get 100, you reach level 2. Now level 2, you need 120 points to reach level 3, which means total, you know, from 1 to 2. If you go from level 1 to level 3, you need 220. If you go to level 4, you need 364 in total, right? This is the max, like in your whole life, how many EXP you've got. And this is how many additional EXP you need to get per level. So what you also have to make a decision about how difficult each level is to the next one. So over here, I put that every level is 20% harder than the last one. Oftentimes you would do 40%. I think oftentimes you would do 40% to 60%, sometimes 80% if you're really aggressive. Now the reason why I put 20% here is, again, I have 60 levels, right? So if they're like 80% apart, over here would just be impossible. So 20% is okay if you have a lot of levels. But if you only have 10 levels, I would recommend each level being about 60% harder. 60% is kind of like my default, and then I adjust from there. So the 20%, okay, that's a number you determine based on how many levels you have and things like that. But then it's about, okay, well, what should these numbers be, right? Why should it be 5 or 10 or 100 or 2,000? Like, how is this number objective? And the key here is then you go to the desired actions tab, which you may or may not have. So if you've been doing the strategy dashboard well, you would have a desired action tab, right? And you have all these desired actions. The battle plan, we're not going to go through a lot of details about how this one works. Maybe another video. So desired action, you can say, oh, which phase is that, how valuable it is, requirements, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. But the key thing is, for every desired action, we think about what the reward is, right? Sometimes it's just emotional, like mind-blowing satisfaction on first landing screen, right? That's not a physical reward, but it's like something that makes people happy, you know, emotional rewards. But then you see like, okay, signing up is plus 20 EXP, finish the Octalysis intro, that's 100 EXP, you know, set privacy sentence 10 XP, maybe, you know, upload videos 20, you know, invite users. So you get a feel of how many EXP people get for each activity, and then you kind of get a feel about, okay, well, it seems like on average, like if people can do this 3 times, they do this once, they do 4 times, maybe on average people get about 100 XP, unless they share a video, right? If they share a video, apparently they could get a lot more. So okay, so we'll say like 200 per day is probably like decent. So it's like, okay, well, you know, that's all right. So if you do 200 a day, you'll get to quickly go through these things and you'll level up. So here's the thing. It's still like, the key is you want to look at the, you can't think about leveling up as a vacuum, right? You have to think about how the leveling up schedule ties into your desired action. When each person takes an action, how much do they get? What is the worth of each action? And then think about the journey that players do. So the key here is I always think about 2 types of users.